So, today another welcome return to Chris Penfold. I think you've been on this podcast more than anyone, actually, Chris.
Well,
I don't know whether that's a good thing or not.
it's a good thing. Of course, it's that's how it should be.
Yes, I know, mate. I know. Anyway, so you're in France. Just to sort of, because this might sort of come up in conversation anyway. So just so that people understand, we did actually do this interview in France, didn't we? And of course, when we actually got the files, there's a couple of massive dropouts in it, and we didn't realise. So we're doing it on Zoom. So I'm in the UK, and you're in France. So yeah, nice weather while we were out here, but while I was out there, absolutely shocking weather in the UK. We avoided it brilliantly. So thanks for that. It's good.
It was good.
So anyway, we'll kick off with, I think the main bit of our conversation was really about sort of musicianship and how you navigate. I don't know how to put this really. How do you navigate other people's ideas?
Yeah, so I've got a way of expressing this, which I've thought about greatly. So I have, let me put it this way. I have an issue at the moment with music snobbery.
Yeah.
Snobbery, and this is me. This is me. Am I being a music snob, or am I justified in the concerns that I have? Before I say anything else, I consider myself a good player. I was classically trained, did all my grades, did all that stuff. I've got a whole bunch of experience to sort of back it up. However, I also know that there are plenty of other people that are dance sight better than I am, and can sight read better and can play boogie woogie and miles better than I can. And, so we all know that we sit somewhere in a tiered ability range. So I've got no problems with that whatsoever. So I'm trying to say that I do not think I am God. I just think I'm a reasonably competent.
So a demigod.
A demigod, a safe pair of hands, shall we say?
Yes.
However, recently I've come to question other people around me on two levels. One would be on the sort of technical ability level, and the second is the artistic songwriting arrangement, what you consider as saleable, commercial, etc. So if I briefly sort of tackle those one by one, and then Vic come back with what you think. So
yeah, okay. Can you just sort of, where's your mic that you've got? Because you're a little bit quieter than me at the moment.
Okay, is that better? Right,
yeah, that's much better. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, you sounded a little bit distant. Okay.
My finger covering it up. So in terms of technical ability, I'm starting to feel like I've been spoiled in the past with the people that I've played with. So I've played with some really good musicians, none of whom are sort of mega famous. Although I'd say Sam Kelly's probably quite well known in his sort of blues drumming world and what he does. But everyone's pretty much on the money. No one has to prove themselves in terms of what they can do. If you ask for a particular style or particular rhythm or particular groove or whatever, when you're playing with all these people, it gets delivered and off you go. So you're never sort of worrying about whether someone can actually play a certain thing. You tend to then just argue amongst yourselves about the artistic side of it. And at the moment, I'm finding that I'm not happy with the other people's ability, shall we say, that I'm playing with, which makes me question me as a person. So am I being intellectually snobby and a bit of an arse, or am I genuinely in need of rocking the boat? Because that's kind of what it comes down to. And I'm really interested in, and the people, by the way, the people that I'm playing with, they're really nice people. There's nothing, they're really sort of the earth, nice people. But at what point do you decide that ability kind of is holding you back a bit?
Yeah.
So I'll just park that to one side as in terms of sort of technical ability, and then we'll come on to the artistic side. Now we can all sit down and we can write songs that sort of go on for hours and hours in terms of and I'm being really artistic, and
I know.
The wind's blowing in my hair, and this represents that, and that sound represents this, and so on. And there's also the opposite, where you need to write something that's playable on the radio, in order to allow you later on in life, shall we say, to write whatever rubbish you want to write, because you're in a position that you can do it. And again, I've got sort of the same issue, where I'm not sure whether it's me or is it some of the other people that I'm working with. How do you know when it's not you, it is the other people? And I'm talking about writing stuff that is commercially viable, no matter what the particular style. It still needs to appeal in order to be sold or used in single film or whatever.
Okay, let's go back to that first one, because both of these are a little bit of a rabbit hole, aren't they? So let's go and deal with that first thing about technical skill, because I know exactly what you're saying, because it's one of these things that you deal with when you've got a band. And I've always, this is a personal take on mine, obviously. When you work with people, sometimes you can get somebody who's technically brilliant. It's just impossible to work with, right? I had a band, I don't know if you remember, that I had a car crash back in I think it was 1990. And then it took me a while to get myself over the injuries, right? So when that happened, I got a band together with some players who were really good. So there was Justin on drums, right? So you've worked with Justin, he's a great player. Grant on bass, Grant Tunbridge. And again, somebody who's worked with everyone. Guy called Chris Jolly on guitar, fabulous guitar player. Ian Ward, who was a harmonica player, brother of Algie Ward of the Damned. And Ian he was Mr. Rock and Roll. He looked like Robert Plant, but was a hell of a harmonica player. And me. And it was a disaster. They were great players, but something just did not work. And they just couldn't. And the only thing you could do is look at that and go, it's the chemistry. There's just something not right. And it's not like people didn't like one another or anything like that. It just didn't work. So there was that element. So I think there's one thing about the technical thing that, the ability to get on trumps the technical ability. However, there are certain things, you're always playing to the weakest link in the chain. That's the same with anything, isn't it? You've got a lot of experience being in the army and everything. And your team, you work as a team, but you can only run as fast as the slowest guy. You know what I mean? It's that thing. So that being said, what you can do is predicated on what people's abilities are. And then, again, this is my take on this. Technique is a tricky one, because when we look at it as a technique, it's not just that, is it? It's the ability to hear things in a different way. It's ability to listen. And I'm just wondering whether, when you're talking about this stuff, whether that skill of listening is not it's not the same as you're used to. Now, I'm not saying that they can't listen, but they perhaps don't listen in the way that you're used to. So I'm just wondering, like, because you made that comment about, people being a bit arty-farty about it. About, I think you said, the wind's in my hair and this sound represents this type of thing. Now, I think really when you're coming from British rock music, stroke jazz, stroke funk, stroke reggae, that's not even on the scale. That's not even in the thing. It's much more basic. And I don't mean basic by being simple. I mean it being earthy. There's more of a gutty thing about British music. And that's evidenced by, the type of bands that we got. They are really sort of spit and sawdust, if you see what I mean. There's an earthiness and a sort of sexuality about the music from the, that sounds a bit of contradiction in terms, but if you see what I mean, there's something about that. And I think that's what I experience with people that I've worked with, that you can say you want it to be this, and somebody will come back with the idea, and it might not be what you hear in your own head, but it fits the bill. I don't know if that's part of that. Is that part of what you would say? That when you listen back, when you say to somebody, it needs to be a bit, and they come up with something, and it's a bit, and then they start to defend what they're doing. I don't know. Is that what you're experiencing?
It's a bit odd. So, okay, I'll put this. I don't want to spill the beans.
No, you don't. But try to, because what you're saying is, I think, is an issue for a lot of artists, not just musicians, but artists. If you're working collaboratively, you're going to get this problem.
I can't imagine it's not, but not. And I am interested in sort of people who want to, if someone genuinely understands what we're saying. So I just want to reiterate, I'm trying to work out whether it's me being a snob or it's genuinely other people just not up to the mark, we say.
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Far away.
So let's imagine, so I play keyboards, I'm a piano player, but I know if a bass player is any good. So how do I know that? Because I can't play the bass. Well, you can tell with all the simple stuff when people turn up on time, they turn up, they're fully equipped. If a guitarist turns up and maybe they've got a couple of spare E strings with them, those top E's that occasionally break, that they're kind of prepared. They've got a sack full of plectrums, so they're not hunting around for stuff. Bass players who've got active basses, they've got spare 9-volt, spare.
Yeah, no, yeah, it is. Yeah, little
all that sort of stuff. That
PP3s. Yeah.
But this person kind of knows what they're doing. And then when it comes to the playing, can simply play in time. If you need to change key, they can change key. Look, but not to something really ridiculous. But if you're in A, they can maybe go down to a G or up to D or something. There's some simple key changes that they can. If you said, all right, can we do an offbeat rhythm on here? You can do that. If you want to do a stab, you can do stabs. If you want to do stabs on offbeats, just some basic sort of musical stuff where it's instant. You're not having to train somebody to do something. So I feel that I know, having not, even though I can't play the guitar, the bass, the drums, the trumpet, or didgeridoo, I think I can tell whether someone is any good. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know.
No, of course you don't.
And then I think it's a bit close to the mark. Sometimes people they're kind of pretty good, but you can't bounce off of them for some reason.
Yes. Yes.
And that becomes really, you can't quite put your finger on what the issue is, which is where I'm getting at. So that
Yes.
becomes a dilemma. So am I being a snob, or are they genuinely just not quite good enough, or is it the chemistry, or what is it? So I will give an example, and drummers, you can shoot me down in flames as much as you like. I generally don't care, because this is my
What do I? The drummers. Goodness sake.
My feeling. So when I watch drummers play, for me, if a drummer can play just with a hi-hat, kick, and a snare, and really make that hi-hat dance, and to me, you can play just about anything, just that. But when I make to play 6,
you dropped out for a bit there, Chris. I'll edit that a bit. So I don't know what you said in the last 10 seconds.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, if a drummer goes off to play the ride cymbal a lot of the time and doesn't play the hi-hat, open and close and 16ths, and sort of dance around the hi-hat to create the more of the intricate rhythms, then I perceive that it's because the drummer can't do it. And if they can't do that, I find it quite difficult to bounce off of that person rhythmically. And I either find that I have to play more, which is not ideally what I want to do. I want to kind of play less. In fact, the more everyone can play less, the more the vocalist kind of shines out.
Exactly. That's a really good point. That is a really good point. So just tag that a minute.
But in order to play less, I need to have something to bounce off of. If I can't bounce off of it, I'm playing more, and so's everyone else, and then it just becomes a big bump.
Exactly. So, okay, because you played me some tracks, and there was another issue that I picked up on, which we'll come back to in answer to the second point that you made. But I think that's a very important point, because again, the rhythm section, when I teach people, and sometimes, I'm teaching drummers, and I don't play drums, but the point about it is, what goes on in the sort of the stratified nature of music. There's, you got your rhythm section, and then you got that sort of part, you got sort of different variants within the rhythm section, which is taken by the bass drum, maybe the bass guitar to some extent. And then you got this other level where you got the snare, and then you got another level where you got the hi-hat. And the guitar locks into one of those points, depending on what it is you're doing. So with funky stuff, it's possibly the hi-hat pattern, right? Just possibly. But, musical styles, particularly when they come often from Latin places or cultures that aren't white colonial, let's just put it that way. There is this thing of how rhythms fit together. So as an example, Latin American music, and you've got the sort of the clave, the guy with the two sticks doing the thing, and everybody is locking in to the guy with the two sticks. Right? So the point is, they're not all playing the same thing, but they're locking in. And I think what happens, what you're saying is, you've got nothing to lock into. The drummer is sort of expressing the pulse of a piece of music and the feel of a piece of music. And if that isn't expressed in a way, like, let's say you're playing a funky piece or a reggae piece or something like that, and he's playing something else that has got a feel of rock to it, let's say, or jazz to it even, maybe. Sometimes that could be a good thing, but often it's not. So you could listen to something and it just feels like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Now, in my experience, that means that there is something often wrong in the rhythm section, primarily the drummer. It could be the bass player, but primarily it's the drummer. And I told you when I first did a project with EMI with Roger Moore, Roger Moore's son, Jeff. We got this band together. Some of it were people that I knew, and there was another band. So it was like an amalgam of two bands, and the drummer was from this other band. And we played this rehearsal, and after it, I spoke to the bass player who I knew really well, and I said, "God, I was absolute crap tonight." And he said, "Yeah." Weirdly, he said, I played rubbish." And then after, we listened to the recording, and he turned around to me and went, "The drummer's out of time." But we didn't know then. It was just like it wasn't in the pocket. And we thought it was us. And what you're saying to me sounds the same thing. It just doesn't groove. And, you feel, I can't. And it is, I would say, the drummer. Or the mix of the drummer and the bass player. I don't know. But it's not grooving, is it? And then everybody overplays.
Yeah, because you do find yourself trying to compensate, not for something that you don't really know is missing at the time. You're just trying to fill what you think is a kind of a bit of space, or you're trying to fill the rhythm that is missing, and then it just gets really cloudy, and then and this is a funny one. If every time you play the same song, it's always slightly different, you end up playing different things all the time, and the song never settles down to be the song.
Okay, so what do you mean by that? Because,
well, it's a constant.
Initially, that wouldn't bother me, but
yeah. So this irritates me massively. So I'm always up for developing songs continually. That's not a problem. But there does come a point where this is the kind of the polishing the turd part.
Yes, that's a very, very British terminology. Yes.
Yeah, there's the difference between changing an arrangement and, well, let's try this sound and let's try that, and
yes,
I'll use this pedal, and what about this, and around the houses, and but it's the same old song, but you're just chasing yourself.
Yes.
It's just bizarre.
Yes. No, that I
waste of time.
Yeah. I mean, we've worked together for years, which is difficult to believe because people would look at us and think we're only just over 21, but we have actually worked together for God knows how long, 30 years? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's longer than that. It's more like 35, 36 years.
Right, okay. So, I could be an awkward bugger. We've never had a problem. No. So it can't be you. It can't be you. So I think the point there is there is a sort of a feeling with some players where they're trying to prove themselves. They're trying to prove how clever they are. They're trying to prove what they can do. Whereas when you really meet great players, I mean, you mentioned Sam Kelly. Sam's a great example. Incredible drummer, great musician. And Sam will do that thing. Well, you were saying about people turning up with a kick drum, a snare, and a hi hat. I mean, Sam can sound damn good on a pedal bin. We've seen him play percussion on a bin, and it sounded incredible. And on furniture. It's all about how you express sound, right? So when you're looking at that and you think, well, great players, and Sam would turn around and say, well, if there's nothing for me to do, I won't play. It's as simple as that. I'll just sit there. If the song doesn't need me, I don't need to play, which is revolutionary because it's bad enough. Guitarists find that difficult enough. If a song doesn't need the guitar, it should stay in the case, because it's about the song, not about what gadget you've got or how you think you can improve your part in the song. Not about that at all. It's about the song. I sent a link to one of the old Red Touch songs to you yesterday. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I've just been,
I just...
I think you said, still think this is cracking.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, we listened, and you think we were a lot younger, where we did that. But the song, it just, as soon as the song starts, it's got you. You got that keyboard riff of yours, right? And a drum part. You know, it's actually sort of a sequence drum part before the actual drums come in properly. But it's already got you. And then there's a sort of a deviation to that, and then it goes into the, you know, the hook, and it gets you, and it carries on with you all the way through the song. And I just think, well, you know, it's all about a journey, isn't it? So
yeah.
Okay. So the second point that you were making about, you said about the arrangement, I think, was it the main?
Yeah, it's more, let's say, the commercialism of something. So commercialism versus kind of art and making something sound like,
yeah,
you know, it's from yourself, or, you know, it's your kind of style. Yeah, and that's a kind of it's quite a difficult sort of medium ground to sort of. No.
This is the dilemma of artists, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like saying you know, anyone can be a very poor, play for free to the whole world, amazing musician, but it's a little bit more tricky to.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. Well, again, actually, your sound keeps sort of dipping in and out. Actually, so don't know whether you're. Anyway, so the thing about, and again, you know, if you. This magical songwriting stuff that I do, and the stuff that we do at Blues Camp, right, which is about, you know, the creative flow. So if you're creating something, it just, you know, it's this idea of just let it appear. But then at some point, if it's the thing for this piece of music to do, you need to put it into a framework that you can present. Okay, so that's the same for any artist, isn't it? It's a case of you get your artwork, and you're going to, you know, if you're a painter, you might be painting a commission for somebody. So you've got to package it in the way that the person wants, and they're going to pay you for it. If you're painting for your own, because you fancy painting, you can do what you damn well want. And it's exactly the same with music. So if you're going out to play to people, you're going to have to do stuff that people, and you expect them to pay you. This is the point. You're going to have to do something that people go, I really like that. You know, in whatever way that they like it. They like the melody, they like the beat, they like the type of music, it makes them want to dance, whatever. But the problem with the arty-farty bit, again, coming back to that technical term, is that there's nothing wrong with doing that, but you can't expect people to like what you do if you don't present it to them in a way that they find acceptable. Because it's, you know, what people want, a lot of it is ticking boxes in people's heads, isn't it? It's like, you know, they feel that they want to move to the music. They like what the band look like. You know, there's something going on. There's a bit of rapport. You know, the music makes them think of something that is relevant to them. It's about talking to the audience. It's about the music expressing something to the audience that the audience can go, yes, that's me. I often think about that Roberta Flack song, Killing Me Softly, with his song. You know, it's all about, you know, somebody going to listen to somebody. It's like, that song is about me.
Yeah.
And it's not, you know, even Neil Gaiman, the guy, you know, who wrote Sandman and whatever, he wrote a book called Coraline. And he said he had so many people write to them because it's about somebody who has to deal with sort of abuse and all the rest of it, and saying that book I read as a child and that saved my life. It saved my life because it was about me. And he said, well, of course it wasn't about them. It was a story, but it spoke to them. And I think that's the thing about music. So when putting it in a structure is part of that. It's a 3.5 minute song. And if you want to take that 3.5 minute song and make it longer in a gig situation because people are dancing, fine. You don't want to have a 10-minute song that nobody's interested in, but you've got to play it for 10 minutes because that's how long it's going to last.
Or how long it takes to get to the first chorus.
Well, that's well, when I was listening to the songs, there's no doubt of the musical ability of people. But as I said to you, it's all about the arrangement. For me, it's like, well, what's this song doing if it's recorded? You're not seeing anybody playing this at this point. It's the song that you're listening to. So it's got to grab you, and then it's got to take you on a journey. And you mustn't lose interest in that. And, if you're a band like Queen or Led Zeppelin or something, you can have a song that lasts for 7 minutes and you don't lose interest. And when you get to the end of it, you want to hear it again. But most bands aren't Queen or Led Zeppelin or Deep Purple or, because there's, or Pink Floyd. They're not. So you just have to go with what you've got. And if you're recording, mostly it's like, well, you want a 3.5 minute, 4 minute song max. That's it. So I think that's one of those things, isn't it? It's that balance between, as you say, as an artist, you've got to make some money. You've got to have people giving you money for something. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people who are involved with music, and because you've got an interesting twist in France, haven't you? Because here it's like, well, if you don't make any money, you've got to do another job. Yeah. But there, of course, you can.
Yeah. So here in France, there is a system where you can register yourself as a professional musician or artist, and if you perform X amount of gigs or engagements, because an engagement doesn't need to necessarily be a gig. It could be like a tutoring something or a workshop. If you can do a set number, which I think is about 43 a year, then you have a guaranteed financial safety net, safety blanket given to you from the state. Now, I think that's a very good idea in terms of it keeps culture alive, and it puts culture at a higher importance, as opposed to in England, where it's kind of like the last thing on any sort of politician's mind is someone playing. However, it's a kind of an easy trap to fall into, and it becomes very much, or some from the people I've seen, I'm a musician, I'm registered as.
Exactly.
But they don't actually do anything all the time. They're not known. They don't have any money. They don't earn anything really. This safety net is not some grandiose scheme. It's minimum wage type stuff, and people can just sit on it for years at a time. But with the kudos feeling that they're a professional musician.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, because again, if you think about that sort of period of time in Britain where we had, effectively you could be on the dole, that wasn't like you were a musician. It was just you were a layabout, right? But of course, you had that culture where people who really wanted to do the thing, they lived in squats and all the rest of it, lived hand to mouth, but they were creating. Now, the problem, and this is one of these weird things, isn't it? You could say this about the National Health Service. And, I'm very left-wing anyway, so I think it's a great idea. But the unfortunate thing is it means that people actually don't look after their health, which is weird, because you'd think, well, that's stupid. I mean, just simple things where you go, well, just eat properly and and take some exercise and just, don't smoke and don't drink too much. Okay, I know for some people that's difficult because, they have addictive personalities and all the rest of it. But just generally, because it's almost like, well, we can go and we can get it fixed. So always something that's a good idea, there's always that thing where you go, that doesn't help. And I think with the French, this situation for the French musicians is it becomes a bit of I've got a badge, I'm part of this, I'm a musician. And I think the problem with being a musician is it's probably one of those things in life that you don't, a bit like being a witch doctor, right? You don't say you're the witch doctor. Everybody else tells you you're the witch doctor, right? And I think musicianship is like that. It's like you just do the thing and everybody thinks you're a musician, but you don't say that. It's what you are. It's almost like it's nothing to do with the ego. You just got to, you do the thing. You get out and you create, you play like you are. You're doing all this stuff out there and you're playing everywhere, aren't you? Patisseries, restaurants, weddings, village halls. You're getting involved and you're driving what you're doing by your hard work, which is what we would do here. And so going back to the thing about the arrangement of the songs then, how do you think you're going to be able to get around that?
I think, we had a good talk and we had a good chat with Mike as well, who was always also down here. And I think it's really good to reflect. I think I'm learning a little bit more about that, is that you need to just down tools. If you think you're having a problem or something's not quite right, you need to down tools for a good week or so and go back and listen to the radio. Yes. And go back and have just get your feet back on the ground and just trying to think about what you're trying to do. And the argument, like we said, it's not whether you're not saying whether a song is any good or not, because there are fantastic people who write amazing songs, and they're really, really nice and very atmospheric, and the vocals are fantastic and the words are exceptionally poetic. But can you earn any money out of it? Is that going to get you a gig at a festival? Is it going to be a real anthem? Is it going to be a crowd pleaser? Is it going to be music warranted for an advert on the radio? Is it going to be worth playing as a single on the radio? It's all, it needs to be, packaged up. And I still remember your analogy, Vic, of the tin of baked beans. So if you've got a tin of baked beans without a wrapper, how are you going to sell it? Because it's just a silver aluminium can, or you've got a nice picture of the baked beans.
Yeah, and what's more is the contents of the baked bean tin is exactly the same as another brand of baked beans, give or take, an added bit of thing in the tomato sauce, right? It doesn't, but some baked beans are twice the price of others.
So maybe the lid is different. You've got to have your logo. It's got to look a bit whizzy, and so on. So I'm thinking. Actually, I think I need to stand my ground. I think I need to believe in me and what I think is right, and stand by my own judgments to the point, not to create conflict, but to the point of if there is a disagreement, then you don't back down. You go, no, yeah. This is how it's going to be.
Well, I think the point when you're talking about songs of other people's, because we sat and listened to a whole bunch of things, and and looked at, we sat and listened to tracks weirdly by Nazareth, strangely, and of course that singer Dan McCafferty died 2 days ago. Talk about coincidence. Anyway, that's not because we listened to them, I hasten to add. But you listen to how good those songs were and how quickly they got you, right? And then you look at bands like, again, I mentioned Queen, but the song that everybody thinks about with Queen, especially young kids, is We Will Rock You. And for all the complexities that they could do, We Will Rock You doesn't really have any guitar until the end. You know, it's one of those things that you go, that's the thing that makes that band. Okay, there's obviously Freddie Mercury's voice, but he's not really doing anything in that. Not like he can, right? It's that beat, right? So somebody, whoever, went, that's so good, that's virtually the whole song, which is sort of counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? It takes that ability to listen to an idea and just go with the idea. And I think that's what's difficult for a lot of people, because they've got it in their head that there's something else is going to happen. Sometimes it doesn't need to be anything else. You know, if there's a hand clap that you think, that sounds really good, stick that hand clap in at the beginning. And let's see how far we can go with the hand clap before anything else happens. You know, really be sort of responding to that. And it's difficult because you do need somebody, as Mike said, you know, who's the benign dictator, who can actually go, no, we're going to do this now. Right? Unless somebody else comes out with a better idea. And generally people don't. Right? Okay, so I think that's the, you know, for me, when I was listening to the stuff, the thing that really grabbed me was the arrangements of the songs, because they were too self-indulgent. They lasted for far too long. And there were sort of interesting bits in the song later that could have been at the beginning to grab your attention. But by the time they got to that interesting bit, it was too late, you know. And also there was a lot of clever stuff, you know, this sort of offbeat rhythm that fitted that vocal bit. But it sounded like the vocal bit came about because of the offbeat rhythm instead of the other way around, to me. Now, that might not be the case, but that's what it sounded like. It sounded like that bit was there and the vocal, or it was, you know, it wasn't natural. It's not like when you listen to, well, a good example of that is, we mentioned this before, Stairway to Heaven. So when the drums come in, the drums follow a part of the rhythmic pattern of the vocal. But I would guess, because this is often what happened with Led Zeppelin, that the vocal part came on later. Because it was often that Robert Plant was writing the lyrics in the corner while they were actually knocking an idea together that was complex, right? So it's quite possible that when Bonham did that fill, he got the vocal to fit the fill. In other words, it came from the rhythm section, not from the vocal. But anyway, so I don't know. But again, short of actually being there when it's all happening and people writing the song, you know, it's difficult to say, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. I think we've probably covered most of those points. Is there anything we sort of missed out?
No. I'd like to do a follow-up because I've got a gig next week, and then yesterday I went to a radio station to Recce.
Oh, all right, okay.
Because I've got it's not an interview, although it's part the interview is part of it. It's a whole day at France Bleu, which is a national station. So we start 9 in the morning, or 8:45 in the morning, finish at 4 in the afternoon. And it's a whole day of recording and interviews, which will then be edited into a program to then go out in December.
That's very good.
It will be, yeah, so it's all very positive, very exciting, but it will be interesting to see how that goes on the back of what we've just been discussing. if you see what I mean.
No, totally get. Yeah, because that will be. It's quite likely that something will come out of that.
Yeah.
When people start talking about what they do.
Yeah, so it's all live performances, but I'm taking it if there was a mistake to play a track again, but to record it. But obviously, if you end up doing it like 20 times, it's going to get a bit. On to something else. So we will see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Your internet has been a little bit unstable because it gets. We've got this thing where it's a bit sort of phasey now on that. So, but I know you're out in the middle of nowhere, Chris. So I'll let you off. Surrounded by lots of trees.
I am interested in if anyone listening to this feels the same way. If you have this dilemma, is it me or is it them kind of dilemma? You should definitely get in touch. It would be interesting to hear kind of other people's perspectives of stories.
Yeah. That's cool. Great one. All right then, mate. So good to see what you're doing, and best of luck with this recording. That sounds good.
Well, thank you.
And it sounds like the sort of the equivalent of BBC local radio.
Yeah. As it goes to, I can't remember the size of the region, but there's a few million people, shall we say, in terms of how it gets passed out. So it's pretty much all of southwest France.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's brilliant. That's good. All right then. So thanks for that, Chris. And,
right, we will speak very soon.
Yeah, we will. Cheers, mate.